Linnea Lueken is a research fellow at the Heartland Institute, and I hope I'm saying your name right. Hi, is it Linnea?
Yeah, that's right. Good morning, Fawn.
Yay, good morning. All right, Heartland Institute, y'all have your finger on the heartbeat of what's really going on in the world, and green energy turned out to be kind of a womp womp. So you're saying
Yeah.
let's look at what we know works and is clean, and we've had cleaner water and cleaner air than we've had in since we were industrialized. So you're saying turn to nukes, maybe some coal, some gas.
Absolutely. So, coal and gas right now are totally clean with all the scrubber technology and everything that we have today. So a lot of the pollution controls that have been introduced have been really effective. But nuclear is something that we've really neglected for decades. I think we went 37 years without building a single new one until the Vogel unit went up in Georgia in 2023. So it's kind of crazy. Most of it has to do with kind of a public perception that it's unsafe, I think, and also because regulations really make the cost of constructing one very expensive. But It's actually not that expensive to operate. It's fairly minimal in costs for operations.
You just got to keep Homer Simpson out of the control room. And, Iran is trying really hard to convince us that that's what their intentions are, but we're not stupid. So, if countries that are peaceful and not terrorists want to put up nuclear facilities, because I got an email from somebody saying, Iran wants a nuclear. Shut up. Okay, so we want more of this, because it would help people save money. Maybe finally be able to afford the things they need to send their kids to college, have a house, maybe a dog. Those sorts of things would be plausible if we made energy more affordable.
Absolutely. And in terms of affordability, I think gas and coal are still cheaper than nuclear. Mm-hmm. But the benefit of nuclear in particular is that the plants can last for a very long time. I think there's a plant in the U.S. that's been going for something, or it's permitted to go for something like 80 years, which is significant as far as a power plant goes. But, and today nuclear by itself already makes up around 18% of our electricity, and it's a dependable resource. It's an amazing baseload energy resource, and you really need that baseload to keep your city from having brownouts and stuff, like a lot of states that rely a little bit too heavily on wind and solar that depend on the weather are dealing with.
Well, not only in the EU are they finding out that that's just not working. Now they're struggling to get it back on. My guest just before we were talking about that. It's like a screeching halt to making it mandatory because they're dying over there. Some of them quite literally. So, we have to get back to what we know works until we have something we can prove works and slowly transition to it. This jumping in with both feet was a really dumb idea.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And the crazy thing is while we have not been building any new nuclear, we have been shutting down nuclear in our own country. And I think, no one regrets that probably more than Germany right now. They've actually had to turn back to coal in a lot of places because they shut down their last nuclear plant relatively recently. And they have rolling blackouts because they do not have stable power, which is... it's not just an issue of inconvenience, but it's actually a safety issue. If you don't have stable power on the grid, hospitals and stuff have to kick on their emergency generators. It's not a good situation to be putting yourself in. And we really, we could have probably the best nuclear in the world, but some laws, especially those that were promoted by President Jimmy Carter back in the day, that make it so that we're not allowed to recycle our nuclear material, our nuclear waste from power plants. Countries like France are able to reuse that material and get more out of it, and that way they have less waste in the end, and also they just get more electricity out of their plants.
Jimmy Carter, bless his heart, as we like to say here in the South, was one of the worst presidents we've ever had, maybe second only to Obama. But when it comes to making things reusable and clean, nuclear is the way to go. People are just scared of the word nuclear. And because they think of nuclear bombs, they think of nuclear meltdowns, they think of, oh, how many miles of destruction and useless land will there be if there's a meltdown? They think of what happened in Japan. You know, they think of all these things, or even Chernobyl, if we're being honest. But accidents aside, this is the way to go.
Yeah, well, and even there, you know, our nuclear engineers are not morons, right? You know, they assume worst-case scenarios when they actually construct their plants. They assume that natural disasters are going to happen. So in places that have nuclear that experience earthquakes and stuff, earthquake tolerances are built into all of their buildings and everything. They design systems so that there aren't these, like, cascading meltdowns. They have passive responses to if anything goes wrong. So it's not just that, like, oh, a human being needs to notice that there's something going wrong so they can hit the stop. There's actually built-in passive controls that shut stuff down if it starts going crazy.
And a secondary switch that also monitors the first one. So it's just, it's like 2, 3, 4-fold sometimes. Somebody wants to know what we're going to do with all the nuclear waste that runs out of those places. For one, that's a lie. That doesn't actually happen. There are places who pollute rivers and streams and water supplies, but nuclear plants are not creating barrels of oozy-goozy stuff that they're burying underground and throwing in the river. They're just not.
Absolutely. There's a I think a location that they've been monitoring for decades, that they did a deep storage underneath a salt dome somewhere out west. And they've been monitoring this thing since the 1990s, and they have never found any pollution or any radioactive material like leaks or radioactivity leaks from this site. The problem is, once again, people are scared of having nuclear material stored underground because they think, you know, what if there's an earthquake? What if there's this or that? But I believe this is in Nevada. Nevada is tectonically active. And they've not recorded any radiation in the soil or in the air or in water. It's been going for decades. So at some point, you just have to say, okay, this is, you know, we're balancing out what it's worth here, and it's worth a lot to have stable power, especially with new emerging technologies like SMRs, which are smaller nuclear plants that they can build really fast. And so it's just been kind of crazy that we've, you know, pretty much actively been stifling this technology for decades and decades.
They've watched the movie Sahara too many times. So if we get right down to it, I only have a minute left, but, you know, we could be doing this, but we've got too many people who don't even want us to hunt and fish anymore. The greenies they're loony, and they're not going to shut up about it. So where do people go to learn more at the Heartland Institute about this?
Sure, you can go to heartlan.org. We also have a YouTube channel where I have some short videos that I've been producing on energy topics, and also you can look us up on Facebook. Yeah.
And so, you know, since this has never happened, but movies like to portray that it did, you can't convince part of the population that it won't happen. There's always a chance something bad's going to happen, but you know what? You get in your car every day and you take a chance. Linnea Lueken, Research Fellow at the Heartland Institute. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for having me.
Bye-bye.